Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stuck in the Middle. I'm Tom Coyle. Today, I want to talk about a theme that is very prominent in the election this year. In fact, it's been prominent ever since the 2008 election. Taking our country back. Listen to this.
You know what, folks? We're going to take our country back from these people. We're going to take it back.
Now, there's a lot of connotations here. Take the country back from these people. Now, obviously, a lot of us look at this and we see a racial connotation there. Obama, he's an African American, he's in office. A lot of people don't like that, and that is true for many people. There are a percentage of people who just don't like the fact that there's a black president, and taking our country back does have that connotation. But we're also missing a larger demographic when we say take our country back. The white blue collar worker, when they say take our country back, something else to consider is they remember the 1950s. The 1950s in the sense that the head of the household could work a job, a blue collar job, turning screws at the General Motors plant, working at a hardware store, or any other non-white collar job, and be able to afford a reasonable house and support his family on a single income. Those days are gone. They remember the 1950s where they could walk outside and not have to lock your door. And in their mind, those days are gone. And they look around like, what happened to our country? Put it another way, I'm from the Detroit area, but I am a mechanical idiot when it comes to cars. But I do know when I hit the gas pedal and the car does not do what it's supposed to do, something's wrong. So I have to take it to a mechanic. I rely on an expert. Now, I'm not very well versed on evaluating the expertise of a mechanic. However, I have things like Yelp where I rely on friends to say, hey, is this person good? Is this person terrible? I don't really know. I'm not sure how to evaluate it. The same kind of thing can be said about our politicians. People are looking for someone to lead them. And right now, there's a lot of angst against politicians. Take a look at this clip right here.
What happened in the UK this week is just the beginning. The world is changing, and all you elite establishment, ruling class, condescending Washington bigwigs who think you know better than ordinary Americans are out.
Now, here's something we have to consider. That right there is the other extreme. Yes, I do think experts in Washington should know more about how to run this country than the average American. We should not be electing the average American to solve complex problems. But see, that is how we are in our society. We look at things like words like average, exceptional. See, I believe everybody has certain things they're really good at and that contribute to society. In fact, that is how society and civilization came to be in the first place. People came together to bring their collective expertise to service one another. Maybe somebody's really good at understanding policy challenges, and so they go into politics. Somebody else might be really good at running a business, so they do that. Person might be an outstanding mechanic, and that's what they do. So there's nothing wrong with having people who are elites or experts. But I think with politicians, they've seemed to have gotten more focused on some of their perks instead of serving the people. You can be elite and still serve the people. Now, look at the perception of Donald Trump. This is a guy who by no means should resonate with the common man, but yet somehow in today's politics, he seems to be resonating because he has struck a very powerful chord. Again, 1950s people, they think of a simpler time, a time of less crime, less violence. However, I've tried to tell people the era we live in now is we are at a better point in our history than we've ever been. And I'll tell you, the reason why is because crime is down across the board, but the media distorts the perception. Now, you look at my house, or you look at where my parents live in Grosse Pointe, they talk about these days where there was no crime and this and that, but it's still the case today. You walk around those neighborhoods, and day to day, if I was not watching the news, I would not realize anything is bad going on. Nothing bad is going on. I mean, I'd go outside in my front yard, I'd take walks with my wife and my son, man, if I didn't have the news, I'd think every neighborhood was like this. And so the news has distorted our perception. For many people, the 1950s hasn't changed. I mean, for me, there are nice neighborhoods out there where you're sheltered, kind of like the Leave It to Beaverland. My hometown, Grosse Pointe, is one of those. But because we can turn on the news and you see all this violence and things going on there, we're just more aware of things. Because 1950s, despite, our sort of recalling fondness, there's a lot of things we tend to forget or we were not exposed to just because we didn't have 24-hour news. The 50s were a terrible time for homosexuals, minorities, and not every white person had a great time in the 1950s either, but we had certain perceptions. It's kind of like when I was in the military. I went through some miserable training exercise, and I look back on it today with some kind of fondness because I've forgotten how much it sucks, and we tend not to remember bad things. There's a lot going on, and I understand people's frustration. And frankly, when you look at someone who is a poor white in America, their view is no one speaks for them. The Republican Party doesn't speak for them. The Democratic Party doesn't speak for them. And in some ways, the Democrats, as they've been reaching out for diversity, which is a good thing, they seem to have forgotten that white blue-collar worker. And if they're not forgetting about it, they make them feel like this person's being attacked. For instance, the Democrats are very big onto in making the environment better. And so things like policies that hurt the coal industry. The problem, though, is when you take away someone's livelihood and don't replace it with somebody else, you are the enemy. Now, is getting rid of the coal industry, moving away from coal, a good thing? I personally think so. But we have to have a plan, an articulated plan to how we take people in Appalachia and other parts of the country who are working in the coal industry and figure out how we get them to do something else, because that is a very hard thing to do. Being able to change is kind of a luxury. If you're just working from paycheck to paycheck, just trying to make your ends meet, you don't have the time to think. You really don't. And only when you're at some position of wealth or at least a certain level of prosperity do you have that ability to sort of think and reflect and take action. So it's a hard thing to do when you're just going on to the next thing. You're working one job, you're on to the second job, you're going home. It's hard. So take your country back is not necessarily a racist mantra, and we tend to be dismissive of that. We look at Donald Trump and we say he's doing very well with the uneducated. And we say the uneducated, we're really trying to say stupid. The stupid people are voting for this blowhard. But we're missing the point. Sure, they may not understand various policy challenges, but like me, going back to my example of the car, they just don't know what's wrong. They know something's wrong. They know things aren't working right. They know that, gosh, my father and my grandfather used to work the same job I did and took care of their family on one salary. I can't do that. Something's wrong. I used to live in a world with no crime. Now there's a lot of crime. Again, not necessarily true, but the media has created that perception. So look around and say, something's wrong. I know something's wrong and I need something to fix it with. There was a meme recently. It had the ex-presidents and the current president, had Obama, Bill Clinton, and both Bushes photographed together. And it was supposed to be a sort of a bipartisan meme suggesting none of these people are supporting Trump. Why should you? Again, that resonates with elites or people who have benefited from the current system. Because that person who is supporting Trump's going to say, I've voted Republican. I've voted Democrat. None of them have done anything for me. So this reinforces that I'm doing the right thing. It's something to think about. And also, for those of you who are talking about take our country back, you should also understand why someone might think that's racist, because it frankly does sound like that, and take our country back has not emerged as a saying until Obama became president. I think it's more than just the fact Obama's president. I think there's a confluence of factors economically, and you had the financial crisis in 2008, so all these things are coming together. But as I was saying, my big thing here, I think most people aren't necessarily racist or stupid. They just know something's wrong. They've seen a system not work for them. And they're willing to crash the proverbial plane because in their minds, it's already crashed. So I hope that gives you something to think about. Now, before I go on today, I don't have a villain, but I want to leave you with a hero. Listen to this clip from Gary Johnson.
What it has done for me is that my head's been in the sand on this. That's what it's done for me. And that I think we've all had our heads in the sand, and let's wake up. This discrimination does exist. It has existed. And for me personally, slap, slap, wake up.
See, look, listen to what Gary said there. He said, my head was in the sand on this issue. This, of course, being in reference to the problems we've been having in our justice system and the Black Lives Matter movement and what they're standing for. And, he's not saying he agrees with everything they're saying, but he's saying he's understanding it. And that is why I find Gary Johnson so compelling. He is empathizing with people. And that, I think, ultimately what we're talking about here is being able to understand why people feel the way they feel. How are they seeing the world? Because that is why they vote the way they do. That's why they take certain stands. It's a perception of how they see the world. And you can't convince them until you understand them. And I give kudos for Gary Johnson for being able to recognize that there's a problem and that he is now coming around to it. How he addresses it and how he would address it, we'll find out in the coming days. And as a libertarian, what sort of his policies would be. But the fact that he understands it is a great first step. Thanks for watching.